Good evening, everybody. I'm hanging out on the front porch, just finished up some tunes and kind of taking a minute and figured I would just make a short update on where things are at as far as GSP goes and the YouTube channel and all that stuff. A lot of you I've been working with pretty closely, and I really had just no idea or really any intention of things kind of taking off the way that they have. I am, to be quite honest, pretty unable to keep up with demand as far as getting tunes cranked out. But I mean that's a good thing, I guess. Doing as many as I can do as fast as I can do them. But I do have a lot of other commitments going on locally. Building a lot of cars here, and I'm hoping to be able to share some of that stuff as it comes down the pike. But still in kind of the early phases on some of that stuff. Got a lot of really cool stuff that I've been doing with my own cars that I really want to try to get out to you guys. But to be totally honest with you, I've just been spending all my time in the evenings tuning cars. All that said, I'm not planning on changing anything. Just really appreciate everybody's patience with not having tunes as fast as I wish that you guys had them, and also not having YouTube videos out near as often as I wish that I could get them out. Got a lot of ideas, got a lot of content that I have recorded some of, but they're really just not complete yet. There's a lot of software side that usually goes with whatever the hardware side is I'm talking about, and it's a little bit tricky sometimes to get both of those filmed and edited. And so anyway, basically I just really appreciate you guys sticking with me. A ton of you have reached out to me personally, and we've developed great friendships, and I really do appreciate those, and looking forward to keeping them going, and from here on out we'll just try to keep it hammered down. I'm a little bit of a teaser. I've got a buddy that you guys need to go check out, EFI University. Ben over there is working really hard to roll out something really cool, and when it launches, really hope that you all will go check it out. I've had a lot of interest in people wanting me to teach them how to tune stuff, and as much as I would love to actually do that, I'm probably more interested in doing that than actually tuning, to be totally honest with you. But the reality of it is that there's just really not time to do that. I'm able to squeeze in a lot of tuning, but as far as making the numbers work to teach people how to tune, it would be cost prohibitive for me to really do that. The way that Ben's planning on doing it over at EFIU is to really make it more of a group scenario. And it's not necessarily teaching you how to tune, but it's teaching you how to think the right way. And it's the way that I think whenever I'm tuning a car. I don't think of myself so much as a tuner as I do just somebody that has been fortunate enough to have seen a lot of scenarios and understands how the ECU works and how those functions work, and being able to think through a problem is probably the biggest skill set that a tuner can develop. So anyway, all that said, let's get to some cool action. I'm going to try to show you guys a trick that I use on my own car that might help you guys out if you have a bigger cam, or for some reason a manual transmission that's got a lot of drivetrain slop, or a lightweight flywheel, something like that. So let's check it out. Thanks. Okay, so I want to give you guys a little trick that if you want to say developed it or whatever, it's just an idea that I had that I wanted to try, and it turned out really to work pretty well. But so I was experimenting recently with some alpha N tuning with the Corvette, and typically I've got the Corvette. This is my primary tune here that I'm running all the time. I've got the Corvette, as you can see here, in speed density, and a lot of you guys probably know that I prefer to tune in VE, and the whole reason that I put a Terminator X on the Corvette is purely for just testing things and doing something different, and working out different bugs and different things like the topic of today's video. So Long story short, typically I tune in VE, but I've been experimenting with speed density. Yes, I know that they're very similar, but I want to just do different things, and also I experimented a little bit today with Alpha N. And real quick, for those of you that don't know the difference in the three of them, speed density is probably the most basic. It literally just means you're using speed of the engine on one axis and the density of the charge on the other to dictate a commanded fuel amount that, based on your injector information here, a pulse width is calculated and delivered to the engine. In the case of Holley, if somebody wants to correct me on this, I would love to know, but from the best thing that I can tell, looking at pulse widths and looking at fuels, I'm pretty sure that this is not really truly speed density. I think a better name for it would be like speed pressure, maybe, but it seems to me that we've got a dictated manifold pressure based on your map sensor, and RPM is in the x-axis down here, and for that given pressure and speed you get a delivered fuel in pounds per hour, and therefore is calculated based on your injector settings, and you get a pulse width. I don't think that manifold air temp is included in this. I think they're relying pretty heavily on the oxygen sensor to handle any kind of correction. The reason I say that is because I see anything from 2 to 3% either direction any given day. You know, getting in the car and going somewhere one day versus the next, and not that that's a big deal. Don't get me wrong, 2 or 3% is very small, but really, you know, you should be able to get a little closer than that once the thing's, you know, really dialed, and you're not dealing with any of the things that would cause error, like having a manifold temp sensor that would adjust fueling. Speed density just uses these two. When you get into volumetric efficiency, the difference there is you're using the displacement of the engine, which is you know, put in right here, in order to calculate a theoretical efficiency. So if my engine is a 50% VE, then that means that it moves half of 427 cubic inches per unit time. And so in that case, you can dictate how much airflow is moving in. If you know how much air and you have a commanded air-fuel ratio, you know how much fuel you need. It's easy to calculate a fuel injector pulse width given your fuel injector information and all that. VE has a better chance of maybe having some air temp correction in it, but I kind of doubt it based on everything that I'm seeing. So anyway, if somebody knows, I would love to know. I do not know for certain, but it sure does seem like we're not using any kind of correction on speed density. All of that said, Alpha N is, instead of using the map on the y-axis, Alpha N uses your TPS percentage. So it's based on throttle percent only. And I did some experimenting today and did not have great success with it. And it's not that the engine ran bad, it's just the problem that I was running into, and really the reason that I even went down this path to start with, was I wanted to see if there was a better way to handle the fact that I really wasn't seeing large manifold pressure changes for a given throttle. And not that you necessarily would want to see a big pressure change, but the biggest problem that I was having was a bucking issue because the cam in the Corvette is quite large. And so where I headed with that was thinking, based on some testing that I did with my spark tables, you can see how much timing I have right here in this fairly high manifold pressure region. I typically would not put this in anybody's car that wasn't my own. But the reason that I have this here is because as I was experimenting, I found that that's what the engine wanted. It ran better with more timing in this region, and it turns out that this region right here, that's let's see, you know, 1200, 14, 16, 1800 RPM. This region right here is where I cruise, guys. This is my bread and butter. What I was running into, however, due to the bucking, is one way to kill off bucking, or at least mitigate it a little bit, is just to pull some timing out. And what happens there is if you limit the ability of the engine to actually produce power, then by pulling timing, then you end up with a situation where the bucking, whether or not you notice it, is here or there, but it's still there. It's just not nearly as significant, and a lot of times is at least manageable. This timing here will yield, it'll eventually get my car into a very serious oscillation that will just get to the point where you have to clutch it. You have to stop the oscillation and start all over again and try to take back off. And the problem is I ended up putting a big hole in my timing table that looks something like this in order to accelerate slightly here, and then when I was out of the throttle and cruising, it would make just a little bit more manifold vacuum and try to pull me into this hole here. The problem was it wasn't consistent. It wasn't robust enough of a method. Not to mention, there are certain times that I wanted to accelerate a little bit in this region, and the engine would just be numb because it had no timing in it. So, what did I do? After experimenting with Alpha N today, I realized that if my timing table is based off of TPS, I have so much more change in this y-axis using TPS than I do map. And the problem with map is, like I said, I've spent all my time right here in this region right here. Whenever I'm up in the 82 to 85 range, that's whenever I'm accelerating pretty hard, like on the interstate pulling up a hill. And whenever I'm down here in the 60s, that's decelerating kind of down a hill. The cam is just too large and it does not make any vacuum. I will never use the bottom corner of this table. It can't get there. It was too small of a region. The trick to this was, once I figured out that the TPS was what was helping me, I just made an advanced table. And let's look at what that looks like. It's a 2D table. I called it Alpha N timing, just for giggles, because I thought it was funny. But what I got here is, 10 to 30% TPS and 1100 to 2600 RPM. This is all cruise region right here. And the goal that I had, and I still have more room to grow here. I want to expand this out into the 23 to 30 range on TPS. But what I figured out, just doing some town cruising, was if I pulled 16, 18, 14 degrees as I kind of, this 11 to 15 range, that's where when you're cruising and you want to maintain speed on flat ground, you find this, it's like you find the middle of the slop, the slop in the drivetrain. So you just get this floating drivetrain that has the ability then to gain inertia and will start to buck. And this really actually worked really well. It made it, and it took some fine tuning, don't get me wrong, but it made it such that to decelerate, if I was completely out of the throttle, I didn't pull near as much timing. I didn't need to. The reason I want to point this out, I have drive-by-wire throttle body, so 10% TPS is the minimum throttle body that I'll ever use, the minimum TPS I'll ever use. So I just put that in this axis. So this bottom row is effectively completely off the throttle. Right here in this 11 to 14, like I was talking about, is that spot where I wanted to pull a bunch of timing. But the key to this is that when I want to go to accelerate and pull up a hill, I want to come right out of that. I want to go straight to zero offset. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this table, get you kind of thinking about like some tips and tricks and ways that you can come in here and achieve what you're trying to achieve. Use your advanced tables to your advantage, and don't be afraid to do things as well in your base tables. Like, you can see this wall right here that I have of timing. That's nothing more than a stall saver. I do that sometimes in advanced tables for you guys. It's a little easier to see, and then the table looks a little smoother, but this works great. I idle on 15-ish degrees, and if the engine ever dips a little low, it sees 18, and if it ever gets to the point where I'm 100 RPM low or something, it'll see a bunch of timing and try to save it. Sometimes it'll save it, and if if you just dump the clutch, obviously it's not going to save it. It's going to stall. But anyway, you guys get a sneak peek here to see my timing table. It's still a work in progress. All this stuff's pretty well locked. The thing just flat out makes no cylinder pressure under like 3,000 RPM. That's really what it comes down to. That's the reason that I can get away with all this timing. Please don't go shove all this timing into your engine and then hurt something and wonder, or not going down the interstate and then make me sound silly. This timing here has been developed slowly over a week or two of just creeping timing into this thing and trying to find what it likes. All that said, make yourself an advanced table to pull some timing out, to solve some bucking issues with your manual transmission stuff. I don't think you're going to run into this with an automatic. Especially most of what we're doing with these Holleys is something that's more in the performance world that's not got a stock converter. But if for some reason you ever found yourself in a situation where your stock converter may be locked up, going down the interstate, kind of wants to buck, you could do something totally just like this. It would work great. And now we've got this blend of both manifold pressure and TPS based timing. Effectively, one thing you could do is have your, not in Holley, you can't do this, it's one or the other, but say we could have a spark table that's based off of TPS and a speed density based off of on our fuel table. So it'd be kind of interesting to do something like that, but you can effectively do whatever you want to do right here in an advanced table. Real quick, if anybody doesn't know how to get to an advanced table or add this to it, the advanced tables are this icon right here for the advanced ICF. You just simply go to Toolbox, add individual config, advanced, default advanced right there, and you can add base tables for this. You'll have 4 2D tables and 4 1D tables if you're using Terminator X. I think it's 8 for Dominators. So, all right. And guys, I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please leave them below. I'll give you the same spiel that every other YouTuber does. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, all the good stuff. I really do actually, side note, want to get to the 1,000 subscribers, mainly because I want to be able to do live videos for you guys and do some live chassis dyno stuff and some live engine dyno stuff. And we'll have a membership drive here at some point, and I'll be harping on it and tell you to invite all your buddies and friends. But in the meantime, just go ahead and get a head start for me, and I will catch you next time. Thanks. See ya.